Round 1, fight!
We're going to start off by playing these pedals through a clean amplifier so that you can hear what they sound like in their purest form. Here's my clean sound. I'm using my Deluxe Strat through my Fender Deluxe Reverb. So just a little bit of reverb, but it's completely clean. So let's start with the OD-1. Yeah, that sounds good. That's a good start. On its own, I don't like that sort of tone with chords. I just think it sounds too boxy. Yeah, but for single note lines, I think that sounds great. This is the overdrive on full. Yeah, that's quite a decent overdrive. It's not hugely compressed, but it's definitely got that asymmetrical clipping because it's got a bit of a raspiness to it. It's a little bit abrasive. Alright, by turning up the level and turning the overdrive down, we just get more, it's now more responsive, it's just pushing the amp a bit harder. Nice. Now for the TS808. Alright, well just with all knobs at noon, that sounds quite different. It's not as raspy and it feels a bit more compressed. And we have less top end. I reckon this rolls off more top end than the OD-1 does. But it still sounds amazing. That's great. I can see why people love that. You know, through a Fender amplifier, has a fairly scooped sound, and you whack one of these on, it just warms out that mid-range. But again, I don't think that it sounds particularly good with chords. Because you get all that top end roll off, and what that does is it takes away some of the definition from the chords. It just all sounds a bit sort of muffled. But for single note lines, particularly the higher you go, your notes have a tendency to be a bit irritating, but because we've rolled off a bit at high end and pushed through the mid-range, sounds great. All right, let's check out this tone knob. My magic setting with this pedal is always just to have the tone right in the middle. That's where I think it works best. I don't think there's a huge amount of sweep on it from about 9 o'clock through to 3 o'clock, but once you get it right up there, it does become a bit more extreme. But yeah, I mean, you don't want a tone knob that does too much. You don't want to just bump it a little bit and it changes your sound completely. I can still hear a bit of the clean signal in there though. Which is a trait of these pedals as well. There's a bit of a boost. That does warm up the sound a lot. Nice. Okay, here's the SD-1. This is the same one that I used for my Battle of the Screamers video, for which you can get this t-shirt. Oh, so I have to back off that level a bit. Feels like it's got as much gain as the Tube Screamer with it up halfway. Yeah, it's really punchy. Again, it's a little bit more raspy than the Ibanez because it's got the asymmetrical clipping, which means it clips the signal unevenly. But again, I wouldn't use that as a rhythm tone because it's just too honky. But I think it does have more higher frequencies than the Ibanez. I think the Ibanez rolls off more of that. So here's our boost sort of setting. Yeah, I think it certainly retains more high frequencies. Wow, did you hear that? As soon as I turned up that tone, I got more gain. I would say that that tone knob is a bit more drastic than the 808. All right, the TS9. Yeah, it's got a lot of similarities to the 808. Again, it rolls off a fair bit of that top end. So you lose a lot of that chord definition. Again, this is why I don't use Tube Screamer style pedals as my sort of go-to overdrive sound. This is more of a single note thing. So with the gain all the way up, pretty much all of these pedals, I would call them a light to medium overdrive. I always assumed with that name and the fact that a lot of metal guys and hard rock players use them, I thought they were, you bought one of these and it was the heavy rock machine, but it's not. It's quite mild. That is also very compressed. Yeah, both of these Tube Screamers here, I think, are much smoother than the Boss ones, and that's because they use symmetrical soft clipping as opposed to asymmetrical. I think that makes quite a difference. I think these two are more compressed, and particularly A08, you can hear a lot of the clean signal in it. And I think even with this one, you can as well. Yeah, you can definitely hear all that compression. Let's check out the tone knob. I don't know, it feels like this tone knob is similar to the SD-1 rather than the 808. The 808 tone knob didn't do a whole lot. I feel as this does a fair bit more. I think that's probably the biggest difference between the 808 and the TS9.
Round 2, fight!
I'm now running through the classic gain channel of my Marshall DSL40, which is slightly broken up. Okay, let's go back to the OD-1. With the gain up. Yeah, definitely. It makes the sound a bit bitier, I would say. I'll try turning the gain down and see what impact that has. It certainly adds a bit of presence to it, makes those single notes a bit more spanky, but I don't know if I'd use it for a rhythm tone. Well, for one, it's not as dynamic as my rhythm tone, but also just that little bit of extra sparkle on top gets a little bit lost because it gets shelved off. And with the bridge pickup. Yeah, I prefer that tone on the neck, but no, it's still a good tone. All right, here's the 808. I think you really do lose some of that real top-end sparkle when you click these on because of that sort of top-end roll-off that you get with the tube screamer. It focuses the sound more. It doesn't really work for me as a rhythm overdrive, but what it does do is it really thickens up those individual notes. So for riffs and for single note lead lines and stuff like that, I think it's perfect. I think that sounds absolutely terrific, and I haven't moved any of the knobs. I love that. I think it really does add something to it. My usual setting for this pedal actually is pretty much everything at noon. I think it works really well like that. I'll just try it with the overdrive down and the level up because I know a lot of people like that sort of setting. Yeah, I think having it at that setting, you get a little bit less compression because we're using less overdrive and it's a little bit more dynamic. So that is actually quite a cool setting. Here's the SD-1. So this one is a bit louder, I think, than all of the others. I always have to back the volume off a bit. And when I made the original video, I was accused of favoritism with the Ibanez because I always had the volume on this lower than the Ibanez. But that was purely because this is a louder pedal than those Ibanez pedals are. I love that tone. I think it sounds really good for single notes. Just like all of the others, it really just thickens it up. It just gives it more, I suppose, girth around single notes. Again, I don't particularly like it as a rhythm sound. I mean, it just doesn't have enough bottom end because it shelves a lot of that, which is part of the reason I use it the way I do, which is for single note lines and for solos. Yeah, I love that sound. It's definitely more coarse than the TS808. It provides a sort of a rougher texture to your sound, which I think really stands out in a live context. Let's have a listen to it on the bridge pickup. So as you can hear, and as I've said many times already, it really works very well to thicken up your sound. All right, I've got the lime green overdrive machine here now. Yeah, it's definitely not as raspy as the SD-1. It's a bit smoother. It's a bit more compressed too, I think. Yeah, it really lends itself to those single notes. Just sounds a bit too thin. So that's really where these pedals come into their own. They're really good at thickening up your individual notes. Yeah, it's got some groove to it.
Round 3, fight!
I've set the DSL40 now to the ultra gain channel. Just really thickens up those single notes. Part of the reason why I think that this pedal works so good with high gain amplifiers is because it has the most drastic EQ curve on it. It tapers off more low end than the tube screamers do, and it's a bit more aggressive in that regard. So having it in front of a high gain amplifier or a high gain setting, I think really comes into its own. Yeah. So you hear when I click that tube screamer on, it really does help them to tighten up the sound. And it compresses it more, you get more sustain on your notes. I could sit there all day with that. It's not even that loud, but it's got a lot of sustain. Whoa. All right, even just backing the gain off. Even with the drive down, I mean, that really works with high gain settings for sure. I think that the TS808 is a little too nice with high gain settings. I think it's just a little too smooth. Probably shelves a little bit too much in the way of high frequencies. I mean, it still sounds really good. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's a good tone. Yeah, I think it adds a hell of a lot of compression. And I suppose that goes up the more overdrive you put into it. But it really levels your notes. So I can see why people really like soloing with these. Yeah, it's definitely doing something to the EQ. It's giving it a bit of a mid push, but higher up, I think, than the tube screamers do. I think it's sort of, yeah, I mean, it's almost got a little bit of a nasal sort of sound. Yeah, definitely nasal. Yeah, I don't really like it for playing chords. I think it just sounds too honky, but you get the pick attack with this pedal that you don't get with the others because the other pedals sort of roll off more high end than this one does. So, you know, if that's important to you, then this is a good choice. From the late 70s through to about 1990, one country ruled the pedal market, and that was Japan. Japan were basically responsible for all of the major pedals and pedal types that were coming out in that time. And chief among them was what we call the Tube Screamer family of pedals. In 1977, Boss released a series of pedals that would change the industry completely. That was the Boss Compact series of pedals, which is still being added to this day. Chief among them was this, the Boss OD-1. This is quite possibly the first mass-produced overdrive pedal ever made. It came out in 1977. Originally, it came with a 14-pin chip, which apparently sounds better, and those ones are worth probably twice as much as what these ones are worth with the 8-pin chip. These were discontinued in 1985. So the OD-1 is considered by many people to be the first Tube Screamer style pedal to ever come out. I can kind of understand that because they do sound kind of similar. They do have the characteristic of blending part of your clean signal in with the tone, but the EQ curve on this is quite different to all of the other pedals that I played. This one is a bit more bitey. It retains more sort of upper mid frequencies that the others tend to roll off, particularly the Ibanez pedals. So this one, I think, is kind of its own thing. It's similar, but it is a bit different. Brian Wampler did a great video where he explained the differences between some of the Boss overdrive pedals, and one of the chief differences is the design of this is much more simple than all of the others, and that's not just owing to not having a tone control. So all Boss overdrives use asymmetrical clipping, which means that it clips the signal unevenly to give it a sort of really sort of rough sort of tone, and that is supposed to replicate a valve amp or a tube amp sort of overdriving naturally. The SD-1 is a bit of a different beast. I think it has a more drastic EQ curve of any of the pedals that I played today. I think it cuts way more bottom end off, which I think lends itself more to high gain playing. If you're in a hard rock or metal band and you want a solo boost, I think these are perfect. In fact, Zakk Wylde has been using an SD-1 or SD-1 equivalent pedal for many years now. He was the first, and as far as I know, only guitar player to have a signature Boss pedal, which was basically one of these. He currently now has an MXR endorsement, and his pedal, his Zakk Wylde Overdrive, is basically one of these just in an MXR enclosure. So the Ibanez pedals here, I don't think are as different from each other as the two Boss pedals were. I think that the EQ curve on these are very similar. Well, I do think that the tone knob works differently on these two pedals. I think that it's a bit more drastic on the TS9 compared to the TS808. I think the 808 tone knob doesn't do a whole lot. I think that these two pedals blend more of the clean signal in than the Boss ones as well, and that again helps with the smoothness. It's a much smoother overdrive than the Boss overdrive, and that's also to do with the symmetrical clipping that these have, so it's not as raspy. That's that word I used a lot today. And the other thing is, I think these add more compression to your sound. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because when you're doing a solo, you don't want your notes to have too much of a volume variance between them. So compressing those notes, I think, really helps in a solo context. The whole blending of the clean signal, I think, is incredibly useful when you are stacking gain. So the way I use tube screamers typically is I will put one in front of a slightly overdriven amplifier or a light overdrive like my blues breaker, and the tube screamer actually blends part of the blues breaker or part of the amplifier overdrive with its own sound, and it just creates this really beautiful and warm solo tone that I absolutely love. It really thickens up those individual notes and cuts away some of that sort of top end definition that we don't need so much when you're doing solos, and also tightening up the bottom end. So I've heard it before that tube screamer pedals are modifiers, that they're very good sort of at modifying your tone. I think that is especially true of single core guitars. I think they work very, very well with Strats and also Tellys. They sound good with humbuckers too, but I think they are especially suited to single core guitars. So I think the Boss and the Ibanez pedals are similar, but they're different enough to probably justify owning one of each. If you're like me and you do a fair bit of recording, sometimes you just got to find that right flavor. Personally, I prefer to use the Ibanez ones for lower gain settings. And if I was going to use one on its own, it'd probably be an Ibanez. But for sort of boosting a higher gain sound, or a medium to high gain sound, I'd probably almost always go with SD-1 or one of the two Boss ones, because I think that their EQ curve is more drastic and I think better suited to cutting out particularly all that sort of thick low end that you might get in a high gain tone. So they're very, very useful, both of them, in sort of different contexts. I think it's very interesting how these pedals all sort of came out around about the same time in the same country. I don't know if they were on similar wavelengths, the way that they were thinking, or if they were copying each other. If you know more about that, please let me know. In fact, if you're a tube screamer user, or if you're a Boss OD or SD-1 user, let me know. Let me know your favorite way to use these pedals. You might know a few tricks that I might not know. So it's always really good to see what people say in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. You can support this channel by going to the Middle Age Gear Junkie store and buying some merchandise. I've put links in the description below. I've also put a link in the description to the Middle Age Gear Junkie Facebook page too, if you would like to join. That'd be great. Other than that, my name is Jason, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you later. I've set the DSL40 now to the Ultra Gain channel.